This week's episode of Schauer Thoughts is sponsored by ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. I love them. I love my primary care physician. I did actually find out recently that I'm allergic to cats. So I am on medication now, and I was raising 9 cats last summer. That's why I was feeling awful. But thank you, ZocDoc, and thank you to my primary care physician. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/shower to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/shower, SCHAUER, ZocDoc.com/shower. Hi guys, this is Schauer Thoughts with Sarah Schauer. This week, guys, is going to be a little bit different. We are going to have actual Schauer Thoughts, which is just going to be me rambling and musing about things that are concerning me. It was going to be a podcast on anti-intellectualism, anti-science, and anti-vax, and I will actually touch on that towards the end and obviously make this a two-parter, but there's something weighing on my mind. But before we get into that, wait, what did I do this week? Now, it's a whole lot of reading. What's new? You know, every time I read, my parents texted me and they're like, what are you doing October 5th through the 9th? And I was like, oh, you mean my birthday? And they're like, yeah, we're trying to like come visit and we want to like, you know, make sure that you're free for that. And I was like, so you're trying to make sure that I have no plans for my birthday so you can call dibs. And the thing is I don't like usually spending my birthday with people, especially not my parents. It's not that, well, it's nuanced. It's just like I prefer to spend birthdays alone. It's when I reflect. It's when I get myself absurd gifts or, you know, I kind of just go off the railings a wee bit. Because, you know, aging is a whole thing. We all get it. But that's one thing. That was annoying, but it's nothing too heavy. Actually, you know what? We are going to get into what I want to bitch about. So in the past, maybe 5 episodes, I've said that I was reading Proust Was a Neuroscientist, and it's one of my favorite books of this year. I actually do have to redact that now, and I'm going to go in on Mr. Jonah Lehrer. Now, Proust Was a Neuroscientist is a mixture of science and art. It is artists who have discovered something in science. And so while all the artists mentioned in the book have led to, like, discovered something in science or led to discoveries in science, right? The author, Mr. Jonah, he had a huge scandal when this book came out. This book was published in 2007. Now, when I was reading the book, I loved it, but I also noticed some inconsistencies with sensations and neuroscience, weirdly enough. I know that he is a neuroscientist, and I believe he's a scientist, and this book did come out in 2007, but the inconsistencies I found were published before 2007. They were made available, so I was like, maybe I'll just write an email, but then I got to the last chapter of the book, and I was annoyed. Let's get into it. So I do love this book. It's broken apart by, this is going to be a temporary book club right now, guys, but I do need the opportunity to bitch. If you love books, you'll understand when the last chapter is just so devastating, you got to make a goddamn podcast episode on it. So the contents of this book, which is really fun, Walt Whitman, he sort of like led to The Substance of Feeling, George Eliot, The Biology of Freedom, Auguste Escoffier, The Essence of Taste, Marcel Proust, The Method of Memory, and then Virginia Woolf, The Emergent Self. Virginia Woolf, The Emergent Self is the second to last chapter. And now emergence is, and if you guys are looking at this on YouTube, the sheer amount of annotations with this book. I love to annotate. I actually do want to make another podcast episode on the art of research. I have read Research's Ceremony, but also I went to the bookstore, and one second, I have all my books with me that I'm reading. So I picked up On the Art and Craft of Doing Science. It's by Kenneth, Catania, and it talks about like, because scientists always, when they discover something, there's usually two steps to the process. It's where but no one really talks about the first step is just wondering and allowing yourself to like kind of, envision where else to explore. It's mainly the second step that's focused on with science, which is obviously like the scientific method and like, testing and research and all that stuff. So this book goes over like the first, the artistic side, the wonder, the awe that scientists have. And a lot of scientists, I guess, are, since you want to have this level of respectability, I guess being more artistic or identifying as artsy is probably not what you want, which does suck, but it's so cool. I love any book that supposedly gives a fusion of science and art. The thing is if you're going to marry art and science, you should be ordained in both, right? And I say that and I sound like, I was raised Southern Baptist. I'm not going to get married in a church. But when I say if you marry art and science, you should be ordained, I feel like a mother-in-law who's like, if you're going to get married within a certain church, I want it to be a certain denomination, because I'll be damned if I attend the wedding of the century and the hiccup is the motherfucking pastor. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to charge down the aisle. So last chapter of Proust Was a Neuroscientist really rubbed me the wrong way. So I'm reading on the art and craft of doing science. And you're like, Sarah, have you not learned your lesson? Don't sing praises for a book if you don't finish it. I understand that, yes. But I also I love the essence of Proust Was a Neuroscientist, because I love the connections that he made in the beginning, right? The last chapter, the final crescendo, is what was lackluster. And then also there was a scandal with Jonah Lehrer in the earlier, probably 10 to 15 years ago that I will get into. And you're like, so we're going to get into author drama? Yes, we are. Okay, so with On the Art and Craft of Doing Science, I thought of another great podcast topic, which would be that research is a craft. It's an art style. If you think about what research pertains, you have to collect different, data and all this stuff from different locations and kind of push them and kind of marry them together in a way that's cohesive, similar to, if you were to craft. And so I did want to make a podcast episode, kind of like a reckoning for anyone who loves to take notes with a whole bunch of gel markers and pens and highlighters. Everyone's like, oh, what's the point of that? Well, actually, research is an art style. So they're crafting, right? It would be so cool to do junk journaling, but instead of junk, it's notes. And the thing is you can even see that here, annotations. I basically, when I annotate sometimes, if an idea kind of spurs me thinking about a personal moment, I'll write the personal moment in the margins. So I am in essence journaling and crafting and doing something artistic. And the way that I tab is that all the tabs match to different colors. So if I highlight with yellow, it's something I know the basics of. It's just best to review. If it's green, it's something that's incredibly relevant. If it's pink or purple, that means I found it incredibly fascinating in my autistic way. If it's orange, it's something that may be an issue or something that's not good or something that is, I feel, may be technically incorrect. And after some research, some of these orange tabs are, the things were incorrect. But so yeah, crafting is an art form. I also have read, I've read Research as Ceremony, Indigenous Research Methods before by Shawn Wilson, but research as ceremony, as ritual, and the art and art can be ritualistic, right? You incorporate it into your routine because art is expression, right? It's taking time daily to express yourself in a way that's structured, not so much that you have to do bullet points of art, but art always requires a frame. So the art, it's the frame itself, the ritual, the ceremony of it, the routine of it is just the frame, but the art itself, you create and you express. So it's two really cool books. I wanted to make a podcast episode on that. Another book I'm reading is The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. I love physics so much. The thing is I read Time Passes and Warmth Disperses, A History of Heat by Hans Christian van Baer. And I love physics, and I mean, I know that heat and time are like butt buddies. And the thing is why I think this is cool is because I've been researching. You're like, I thought we were getting to Proust was a neuroscientist. I know we will, but like, I need to like tell you about the books I'm reading right now. What's cool about this one is that he is very much, and Carlo Rovelli is very much in favor of marrying art and science. Specifically, he has this portion on poetry because poetry and science, both share, rebellion. Like science rebels against like, oh, these supposed established truths, the status quo. Yeah, actually the universe does revolve around the earth, and scientists rebel, and poetry, is often a rebellion. So yeah, rebellion is perhaps among the deepest roots of science, the refusal to accept the present order of things. And then perhaps poetry is another of science's deepest roots, the capacity to see beyond the visible. And so I love when anyone marries art and science. This is not me. This is just an author issue. But I love The Order of Time. Why I'm reading it is because I've gotten into researching near-death experiences. And the thing is when it comes to near-death experience, which is like where someone clinically is dead. I guess brain dead is the term for it. But after a prolonged amount of time, they come back to life. And now the thing is it sounds like I guess it could be a spiritual experience. It probably is for a lot of people. But what I've noticed whenever I read or like watch documentaries about near-death experiences is that the laws of physics are still in play. And that is interesting because if you've ever watched a documentary, there's one on Netflix on near-death experiences. Every single patient who reported a near-death experience, whether that be, if they had a near-death experience in an operating room, they always see themselves from right over the attending's head or in the corner of a room. And both of those things are thermal bridges, right? So the laws of physics and heat are still working, right? And then also what I've noticed is when I research near-death experiences of people who drowned or died in rapids, most of the people who reported having a near-death experience died in salt water. And the thing is salt water is more conductive, because of the dissolved ions and all the minerals in the, the water. And so the thing is your skin is conductive, skin conductance. And the thing is when someone has a near-death experience, right, like their body starts to shut down. So I wrote this down because it is a lot. Almost all, I obsessively checked, people who experience near-death experiences from drowning or being submerged in rapids happen in salt water, they're highly conductive. And all of the people were pulled out, obviously, by a friend. And that friend is in a heightened state of fight or flight, right? Panic, because you believe that your friend is dead. Therefore, their own parasympathetic nervous system is extremely heightened. And skin conductance is regulated by the sympathetic nervous system. And since both people are human, right? Obviously, the currents, your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system currents are going in the same direction. So your friend who's, your sympathetic nervous system is taking over. Your friend with the heightened parasympathetic nervous system grabs onto you in water, which is highly conductive. That's why you don't throw a toaster in the bath, right? Now the currents are going in the same direction, okay? And you're like, what? Sure, that's a lot. I know, but I'm trying to say there's so many elements to this where physics could come into play, and the thing is people who had near-death experiences from, usually in rapids or like they're doing some extreme sport is that they have a heightened level of adrenaline tolerance. And if you look at adrenaline half-life and all this stuff and maintaining homeostasis, and then, another thing is a lot of people, when they report a near-death experience, they say that time blurred and they saw their life flash before their eyes. Now, how memory works is that it is always processed, past to, like what happened first to last, right? It doesn't go last to first. It doesn't run in reverse order. So, your life flashing before your eyes, that is showing that memory is still working. And then also, it was a blur. So with the order of time, right, when you get to the microscopic level, to the level of molecules and atoms, time does blur. And so, if you're thinking about a near-death experience and, human beings, when you are dying or you're breathing out or you're just existing, you are giving off, matter, and the matter does include DNA. And so I'm not saying that I have figured this out. I'm saying that there's so much physics that checks out to near-death experience. And when I research near-death experience, it's always obviously from usually a neuroscientist perspective, and predominantly at UVA is where they have the actual serious, research for near-death experiences. But the thing is that's just measuring what's happening inside the body, the brain, right? Your brain dead, and so you're like, how can you still be alive? And the thing is there's different I mean, if you think about the gut brain axis, and you think about I don't know, there's a whole bunch of system, body memory, I don't know, I'm just a goof, I'm just a comedian, but I'm saying that there's if all of the people who report near-death experiences have the same general experiences that do abide by the laws of physics, right? Like someone reports floating, right? So gas, heats, it will rise. No one reports viewing themselves from the floor, It's always by another human being, and, emotions and intellect is shared, right? Emotions basically follow the laws of thermodynamics. So energy, neither created nor destroyed. And then, the role of heat and time, and the fact that time, the thing is there's also time dilation. And I know you're this is all so far-fetched, but the thing is with time dilation, a clock can run faster on a table versus on the floor. And yes, it is fractions of a second. But the thing is that you have to consider pressure and gravity, right? If this person is not a full human being, right, and they're particles, they are a gas, right, then time will, less pressure, right? Time passes slower on the seafloor because that's heightened pressure. Time will pass faster, and then what is real time, I guess that's all relative. But it's just, the fact that a lot of people mention time passing by in the same way, heat experience. Also, a lot of people say when they wrap up a near-death experience, they snap back. And the thing is that snapback, I feel is gravity, because also they all describe when they snap back that they feel a bit nauseous. And if you've ever watched interviews of people who experience zero gravity, right, you the sudden shift from no gravity to gravity, it's gonna make you a wee bit nauseous. You ever seen someone throw up in one of them fighter jets? But anyway, this is not me saying I figured it out, and obviously there's a bunch of things that the math of it, and I'm so down for feedback. You guys don't even understand. I am saying though, if you watch the interviews and the phenomenon that people describe, there's some physics at play. And that is significant, right? Whether or not the experiences are whatever. I'm just saying, neuroscientists should not be the only ones looking into this. Also, must I say, bring back Proust was a neuroscientist. That psychologists stole their terms from physicists because so the metaphysics is. There's quickly parallels that you could draw to the body and the nervous system, especially, right? I think nerves have inertia. There's so much to it, and I think that I would love to explore it more. This week's episode of Schauer Thoughts is sponsored by ZocDoc. Have you ever been to a dentist who wants to chat with you while they're cleaning your teeth? Or a primary care doctor with a literal 6-month wait to get in for a visit. Let's hope that rash isn't contagious. Or drove over an hour to see that one specialist in your insurance network. Well, I'm here to tell you that you don't have to settle anymore when it comes to finding the right doctor
With ZocDoc, you've got options. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. I have been using ZocDoc for years now. ZocDoc and I go way back. I love them. I love my primary care physician. I did actually find out recently that I'm allergic to cats. So I am on medication now, and I was raising 9 cats last summer. That's why I was feeling awful. But thank you, ZocDoc, and thank you to my primary care physician. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/shower to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/shower, SCHAUER, ZocDoc.com/shower.
I have written this down like a million times. I think my Instagram story watchers are like, okay, you like near-death experiences. I don't. It's just because everything that these people are describing. Also, when people have a near-death experience in an operating room, right, a lot of them can describe specifically the tools that the doctor used. Now, surgical steel is not the most conductive metal. However, when they describe the tools, they're describing it, the nooks, the crannies, the curves, right? It's a very topographical way to describe metal. And a current will travel around, okay, so I'm just saying, and with their thermal bridges, maybe your friend or the attending is the path of least resistance. I don't know. Okay, but I mean, that's just me saying that there's a whole bunch of physics involved and metaphysics, cognitive physics, that exists for a reason. So it may behoove some people to look into. And again, just a pitch. I'm down to be wrong. I'm down to clown. And you're like, this was supposed to be anti-intellectualism. Well, the thing is I am pro-intellectualism. And so I should read the definition of anti-intellectualism. It's a person opposed to or hostile towards intellectuals and the modern academic, artistic, social, religious, and other theories associated with them. A person who believes that intellect and reason are less important than actions and emotions in solving practical problems and understanding reality. The thing is I think I've said this a million times. Logic and emotions are not enemy. They need each other, right? Like, logic is the function, emotions are the inputs and the outputs. So you have a function. Do you know how to use it? You really can't test it without, you can't do sort of inductive reasoning without more inputs, without building upon, the previous logic. So like pitting logic against, emotion doesn't make any sense. It actually does not make any sense intuitively or logically. So, but people are hostile towards intellectuals. And I guess it's because the thing is the scientific community can be a bit, harsh, sterile. I mean, obviously they have to be objective. But the thing is sometimes it can be taken to a bit of an extreme and condescending. I can understand that. I am not anti-intellectual. But the thing is like, I was just talking to Travis, who's here in the studio instead of Rebecca. Travis?
Yo.
Yeah, he said that I wasn't condescending, and I pointed out that because I'm more of a student. He said that I monetize being a student. Were those the words?
That's it.
Yeah. So yeah, because I'm learning with you guys. I think if I were like an outright expert who's like, no, everything you guys say is wrong. Spirituality, wrong. Emotions, stupid, boring, whatever, wrong. Then like you wouldn't want to watch this. You would be like, the thing is I also have another book with me, which is The Knowledge Illusion by Stephen Sloman and Philip Fernbach, which I did talk about. Like, I think one of the first couple episodes I did of this podcast is that a lot of people think they know more than they do. What was the point that I said before the book that I just remembered?
Anti-intellectualism.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of people, when they see, people spreading misinformation or like all these people are like, it's misinformation, the knee-jerk reaction will be to, put out like sort of educational campaigns. But the thing is educational campaigns really don't work as effectively as you think they do. I mean, there's like 4 main reasons why people are anti-vax, and 2 of them have to do with religious reasons and philosophical reasons. And the thing is the other two is safety concerns, lack of information. And both of those are in terms of like ways to persuade someone. The second, like those last two are easier to change someone's mind because they're related to the objective, right? Like, oh, I don't know if this is safe, or I don't know if I have enough information. When it comes to changing someone's mind about morals and what they personally like feel conviction in, that's going to be a lot harder to change because beliefs, like I've said, don't exist in a vacuum. They are a knot of beliefs. So you undo one and now you've got the rest of the knot. And the thing is the knot is not specific to the individual. It's made by the community who they feel a part of, right? And so since humans are social creatures, you know, if you undo your beliefs and then you're like, oh, if I don't believe this stuff anymore, I'm going to start separating myself from the group. I've lost identity, right? And then you lose sense of self and you feel kind of like adrift. So when it comes to convincing people of, you know, certain things, when it comes to like their own personal beliefs, whether they believe that, you know, abortion is murder or not, that one is going to be harder than, you know, someone who like doesn't have enough information and therefore is delaying vaccinating their child, because wanting to be thorough is pretty reasonable. But so yeah, there's just this overall like hostile feeling towards intellectuals as a social trend, and, you know, anti-science, and then anti-vax. So that is what the podcast episode, you're like, just get to the damn book. All right, but I will return to the anti-science stuff because I want to. Why Proust was a neuroscientist was so frustrating to me. So the second to last chapter is on Virginia Woolf, the emergent self. Now, emergence is, you know, when it's something that comes and goes, but it's like something that two like factors come together and then they emerge, right? So it's a process, right? Emergent properties are ongoing processes, which means they have to be done in the moment, right? So like I talked about with this book, you know, neurogenesis. Your brain is constantly making new neurons. You know, you're constantly giving birth to yourself. So, you know, and, you know, the present moment, I guess, is defined by your attention span, your short-term attention, which is like give or take 10 seconds. And so like a moment is give or take 10 seconds. That is the present. You know, it's very short. It's like boop, boop, boop. I mean, but it flows. But I made it seem like it's like a, you know, breaking apart into like solid chunks. But no. So Virginia Woolf, he spends this entire chapter on the emergent self and like, you know, how you know, emergence, time passes and sensations come and go, but we remain. And why I highlighted that in this book on Proust was a neuroscientist, because it says time passes and sensations come and go, but we remain. I also read the book Time Passes and Warmth Disperses, A History of Heat. And the thing is sensations are activated by heat. So, like I said, psychology does mirror physics. You know, it's like when someone says the title of a movie in the movie, but this is the title of another movie in another movie, right? And so it's just, he basically, and all throughout this book, he's like talked about like the physics and the science of it, because he's a scientist. And emergence, right? What makes me so sad is that the last chapter is called Coda. And so, you know, he's talking about, you know, the formation of a third culture. Now, he hoped that with this new culture, it would close the communication gap between scientists and artists. You know, he thought that this third culture would rein in the extravagances of both cultures and their extreme. He said the third culture is now a genuine culture movement. You know, however, it strays from his project instead, you know, of a dialogue between artists and scientists, shared cultural space, so to speak. The third culture today refers to scientists who communicate directly with the general public. They are translating their truth for the masses. Wrong. Okay, this was written in 2007, but as I'm going to remove this from physics a bit, I am a third culture kid. Now, a third culture kid is someone, it's a semi-nomadic subculture, and it's where you're, during your developmental years, you moved around a lot. So there's a lot of different types of third culture kids. Military kids, pastors' kids, traveling salespeople's kids, a large chunk of immigrants who are children, you know, missionaries' kids, well, I said pastors' kids, and then diplomats' kids. So, or children, part of the foster care system. If you moved around a lot growing up, that is considered third culture. And what is a unique experience for third culture kids is that since you move around a lot, change is the only constant, right? When you meet someone new, the first impressions are everything to us. You want to be warm, you want to be inviting, you want to build a connection. Because the thing is we have no history with this person. And also the future with this person, incredibly uncertain. If you are constantly moving, and you want to feel like a human being, because human beings are social creatures, you're going to want to try to connect, like hierarchies fall away, like pre-existing notions fall away. Like there are no pre-existing notions. So the connection emerges literally in that moment. That is the essence of what it means to be a third culture kid. When past doesn't exist and future is unknown. All we have is the present. So he said, third culture, I mean, this is 2007. I mean, but still, so Bush administration, whatever. But, the third culture today refers to scientists who communicate directly with the general public. No, that's not what a third culture is. I mean, the thing is also I, as a third culture kid, do consider the internet to be like a third space. And a lot of people, a third space is like a place that is neither work nor home. And the thing is yes, you can work on the internet and you can live on the internet, obviously, go outside, touch grass, and then obviously, click my link to buy this new vacuum cleaner. You can do both on the internet. But the thing is the internet is just the public coming together mainly to like share ideas and spread information and to connect with one another. I mean, the level of connection is a bit off since it's like visual and auditory. So like, yeah, it's not full on connection, but it could register as a third space. And the thing is a third space is not an escape from reality. It's an escape into reality. And the thing is reality is the present. Okay. And the present is not governed by scientists or artists. It's everyone, right? If you're existing within this moment, it's where we all come together as one. And so he was just like, okay, so like third culture, we failed. Let's move on to fourth culture. And I was like, whoa. You're a scientist? And you're telling me this doesn't make any sense. Anyone so it is 2007, No Child Left Behind. But the thing is you don't get third culture, so you move on to a fourth. No, you understand third before you move on. Like we don't just, we failed that, let's move on to the next thing. Also, math is one of my favorite subjects. You cannot disrespect the number 3. That is sacrilege in math. The thing is you didn't get third culture. You didn't explain it right. This entire book is about a fusion of physics and about a fusion of science and art. You have lined up the shot so meticulously with this book, right? And then you miss. You lined up the shot and you missed. Everything is suggesting a fusion of science and art, right? You misrepresented third culture. Let's move on to fourth. What? That is like going to a bowling alley, asking them to put up, the guardrails and then chucking the bowling ball at the concession stand. Who gave this book a fucking award? Are you kidding me? And now we're going to get into the scandal, Mr. Jonah Lehrer. The thing is I'm a comedian. You're supposed to be a writer, and a writer is a type of artist. But you also have plagiarism scandals. So therein lies the rub, okay? Are you an artist? There is a whole scandal with him, which pisses me off. And he, like I said, when I was reading the book, I did notice some semantic inconsistencies. That information was available before 2007, and I was going to email him. But I was like, you know what, maybe I'm whatever. And then I looked up online. He had a plagiarism scandal. Of all the musicians he made up quotes for, Bob Dylan. Okay, if you don't know who Bob Dylan is, Bob Dylan has had possibly the most career transformations, personal transformations throughout his life. Like he is known for transforming and taking on various personas. And so the thing is when change is your constant, when you're constantly transforming yourself, you are going to have an incredibly unique perspective and way of expressing yourself, and that includes style of speaking. Okay? So Bob Dylan fans are acutely aware of what does and does not sound like Bob Dylan. And so of all the artists to make up a quote for, you chose the most unique hybrid, constantly transforming, with the most ever vigilant fandom, right? Who can notice inconsistencies that don't sound like Bob, right? So yeah, then that got him into a plagiarism scandal. You know, I want to read it. The New York Times. Do I even have? I don't have a New York Times subscription. God. Okay, yeah. The fall of Jonah Lehrer. What makes me so upset is that I love art and science, and I trusted this guy. I vouched for him. There's now 5 episodes where I'm like, this is going to be my favorite book of the year. And then the thing that he flubs on is third culture, which is, that's my culture. It's a semi-nomadic subculture. It's why I don't feel connected to my parents, or I don't feel, you know, with third culture kids, like I could give away all my shit and it really wouldn't matter. Like a lot of third culture kids don't even bother decorating their bedrooms because it's like, how long am I going to stay here? You know, sometimes if you move a place, you're like, do I want to make friends this time around? You know what, screw it, I'll wait till the next time. You know, or do I want to adopt a certain persona at this like new location? Like you could really become anyone when you like constantly move around. And so like to misrepresent third culture at the end of a book on art and science and then just move on to fourth. And the thing is I'm also autistic, so you didn't get the granular aspects of third culture right, so you move on to fourth. No. That's not even how you do a process. So you've misrepresented artists. You're not, that's so anti-scientific. No scientist is like, oh yeah, like, well, we didn't understand the third law, let's move on to the fourth. They build upon each other. But yeah, the fall of Jonah Lehrer, he found himself at the center of a journalism scandal. This is from 2012 regarding self-plagiarism and if it's ethical to reuse your own content. But he also, fabricated several quotes from musician Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan, that's like misquoting Taylor Swift. Now, the thing is Taylor Swift can say some pretty general things. However, Taylor Swift fans are on it. So they know what she has said and what she has not said. So of all the people to make up something about. But yeah, he had several like plagiarism scandals. And apparently, missed opportunities and warnings. Yeah, the world is crashing around. And anyway, he like did this like public apology where he like stood in front of a screen with like tweets bashing him. And it was just so cringe to behold. But yeah, so Proust was a neuroscientist. If you picked it up because of me, the sentiments are great. The last chapter is a total flub for me. I actually like... And it's the thing is how fiction and nonfiction, we have like our differences, but I feel like, you know, in the realm of fiction, you get so like genuinely like more frustrated because like the book is like, why did you end the characters like that? To be genuinely disappointed at the ending of a nonfiction book is not, it's unique, right? Because the thing is if an author is bad at nonfiction, you're gonna like, actually, there were some glaring inconsistencies throughout. You know what? Maybe I set myself up. Anyway, I'm sorry if you bought it. It is still a good book. I want to rip out the last chapter and be like...
You think he had like a publishing deadline he had to meet?
Yes, I think like the thing is it's so rushed because the thing is every single chapter sets up emergence, third culture, present. Like the thing is he's talking about like postmodernists and he's like the movement. The thing is like science lays down the laws that can constantly be updated, right? So they pretty much have the past organized, but they're on the frontier, right? They're on the outer limits of what's to be discovered. That's their artistic, side, but then the laws are like, the scientific side, and the laws are of the past and then the discoveries are of the future. And now with artists, you see the beauty in the mundane, right? So things that have already been discovered, but you're finding your wonder is pointed towards, the past, but your expression, is pointed towards the future. And so like where we both meet is the present. So to be like, okay, past is laid down in stone, which is not, it's all relative. Okay, but the past, is pretty much laid down. The future is chaotic, unorganized. What could the third thing be? Let's move on to the fourth. The third thing right there is the present. the present, right? It's like the wonder, the awe, the shock, like if you read there's this book I read for it's something how to write like a fiction story. It's about like what good editors know. Artists and scientists, they meet at the present, right? And shock, eureka, right? Like the thing is surprise is our shortest primary motion, and it lasts about 10 seconds, which is the present moment. Our like what is defined as the present. So surprise can only be experienced in the present. And surprise and shock, discovery, revelations, like they all begin, the scientist's journey, and they all begin the artist's journey. And so I was reading this book about like how to write a good fiction story, and there's something called the Kubler-Ross change curve for story, and it exactly mirrors the grief cycle. So the thing is this these fiction writers are like, oh, what makes a good story is literally the life of a human being. And so the grief cycle goes shock, surprise, right? That's the inciting event, whatever. And then it goes denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And the same thing applies to the Kubler-Ross change curve for story, is that, something happens to the main character. They're in denial about it. Now they're mad. Now they're bargaining with it. Now they're sad about it. Now they accept it, right? And then once you hit acceptance, you move on to the next story or the next thing in the series, right? And so like when it comes to like what this means for us is that after surprise comes either denial or acceptance, okay? If you want to speed up, the learning process, if you want to slow it down, shocking truth, right? Truth is just discovered. You're surprised in the moment. You could either deny it and then go on the entire journey, the long-ass, stressful, emotional journey, or you could accept the truth, therefore bypassing the entire denial, anger, bargaining, depression, that whole stage. So the second you start to, in the moment, deny hard truths, right, is the second you start to die, right? Okay? But if you hear a hard, shocking truth in the moment, you give yourself a couple seconds, and you know what? You check the information, the claims about it, the sources, and you accept it, right? That is, you just completely go around the grief process, and you just move on to acceptance. And so that's like what artists and scientists share, is that first shock, and then moving to the acceptance stage, right? If you deny it, then that's going to take you down the entire change curve for story. And while a good story is, everyone loves that, sometimes you just want to keep moving, right? Because the brain's primary function, the body's primary function is to keep you alive, but the brain's primary function is to make sense, make meaning, to understand. It's not healing. The thing is learning and finding meaning, creating meaning, because meaning is an emergent property. Okay. Oh my God, this is why I'm so sad he missed. Like your brain's main function, primary function, is to make meaning. And so you have to accept truths as they come, think credible truths, right? And this leads into anti-intellectualism and stuff. Make sure you believe stuff, and beliefs require proof, or we could get into the element of faith, and that's where you may lose some stuff. But like, you accept hard truths, right? You try to make sense out of things. This is why PTSD is so debilitating, because you're trying to make sense of the event and you can't. You need to process it with like, moving your eyes and like literally trying to categorize it in your brain. That's what REM sleep does. And so that's why they do like the, back and forth eye movements. But so like, when you seek out meaning, when you create meaning, when you see everything as a learning opportunity, you restart, right? You've completed the process. You jumped over denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and you just went straight to acceptance. And you're just hopping along. And the thing is the sequences and the processes are now completing, right, in your brain. It's shutting a tab, shutting a tab, shutting a tab, shutting a tab. All these tabs have been open since you were like 10 years old. Your computer is overheating, right? I'm running on a 94 Windows PC, and I have never closed a tab in my life. The second I start making meaning and understanding what's on the actual page, close it out, 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 close it out. The brain starts to run faster, right? You get out of burnouts. You start to heal, right? A lot of people are like, so that's why learning and making meaning can be healing. You are finally moving at the pace that you'd like to. You're less stressed. There's less pressure. There's less heat. The physics of it all, right? And so then this is why, and in terms of emotions, acceptance is both happiness and sadness at the same time. It is the clarity. It is the relief of clarity, right? Oh, I understand this now. But the weight of knowing, because information is literally heavy, right? And so like in your brain, you're trying to pair feelings, sense, making sense, meaning and sense, meaning of the senses, like what your body experienced, that reaction, right? You're trying to pair emotion with like the information, right? You're trying to weigh it down and anchor it so you don't lose it, but you can move it out of the way. It's like a ship, You like anchor that in place and you always know where it is. Before you anchored it, it was just adrift, right? And if you've ever been to like a boat parade, if no one puts down the anchor or ties the boats to each other, you're all going to be hitting each other. There's going to be damage to everything. Some boats may sink. But if you all anchor in a specific spot and your body and your brain knows where to access those things, right? Then that's like healing and you don't get hurt even further. So information weighs it down, and then the clarity of seeing, right? So it's, that's why ignorance is not bliss. And acceptance and the weight of knowledge, acceptance is stillness. It's calm, right? It's because you're anchored in place. And, while you may be swaying with the ocean, the gentle movements, you still have the anchor, the information holding you down. So even if for some reason, trauma or something awful comes your way like a storm, you know that you're safe in place. And so, And so I was just upset because, he was talking about emergent properties, life, love, meaning. They're all emergent properties, which means that they're ongoing processes, which means you have to be in this moment. And I guess the moments could be defined by your attention span, which is around 10 seconds. And so it just was a completely missed shot for saying science and art meets in the present. It emerges into, life and meaning and expression and all this shit and love. So I was just so mad that he lined up that shot and then he missed because he was dancing around it. God, now I understand blue balls. I was like, that's so sad. Who gave this an award? I mean, the thing is, even before the plagiarism scandal, the last chapter was just, when someone tries to write like a welcome home banner and then the M-E at the end of home are just crunched.
Yeah, you miscalculated how long the word is.
Yeah, I'm like, that's what the book looks like. It reads like, it's like a beautiful welcome hymn. You know what I mean?
Well, did you watch How I Met Your Mother? Or The Office?
No.
Great series, bad finales, or bad last seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to happen in art.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I want to say if he has a plagiarism scandal, that means that a lot of these ideas are not his own. So the thing is the end would have had to have been a unique fusion from what he learned. And so if the ideas are not his own.
And this was before ChatGPT, so he couldn't even cheat.
He couldn't even cheat. It was 2007. I mean, we're about to hit a recession. This is probably why we hit a recession the first time. This book, no, it was just so sad. And he's like, I mean, a great author. The book, if you, like I said, like if you read it, and the sentiments are fine. Some of the information is, I guess, technically incorrect. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I wish I knew more sports terminology where, like, you do a perfect game and then at the last shot you miss. I don't know. You choke, yeah. Like, it was just such a, like, choke. Like, literally, I wanted to Heimlich this man. I wanted to get behind him and I was like, get the words out better on the page. But, yeah. And I know that's not what choking literally is in sports, but, like, you, like, choke up or... I thought it was funny to make a Heimlich joke, But I was gonna be like, cause Heisenberg, but they're not the same fucking thing. I heard the high and I was like, that's good enough for all my science people. But yeah, so now I'm reading these books, and I was gonna get into anti-intellectualism and anti-science. So I guess so I'm gonna humor some people. This is a nuanced conversation. Sometimes scientists get it wrong. I mean, that is also discussed in The Knowledge Illusion, which I, again, did recommend to you guys. But it was talking about, confusion on the front. It's like, so The Knowledge Illusion is kind of the sister to the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is where you learn a little bit about something, and then you assume that you know everything. But there's like, you realize that you don't know that much.
It's why TikTok exists.
It's why TikTok exists. But so yeah, the illusion of explanatory depth is her sister, and that's where a lot of people assume that they know more than they do until you ask them a question about how it works. Like I gave the example, a lot of people think they know how a toilet works, and they'll be like, oh, you poop in it, and then you flush, and then the poopy goes away. And then you're like, okay, so where is the siphon on a toilet? And people are like, so usually plumbers are like, give me a second, I got this. But now people realize, oh, they don't know as much as they think they do. So there's even a part on this where sometimes scientists do flub. And it's because, science, you do have a very, very rigid process. And so there's like very little room for subjective interpretation in science. You do start out with the subjective experience of childlike wonder and awe, but now it gets filtered through the objective, and emotions motivate actions. And so like a lot of people, when they interact with science, they're like, well, this is completely devoid of passion. It's like, no, the passion is baked in. This is someone's life. But then also the thing with science is, I've also talked about this before. I'm reading, I'm reading like 6 books at once. This one's not here. The Science of Music. And I love it so far. I kept seeing it on TikTok, and the author seems really cool. And I would need to learn more about like music, because a lot of science is like frequencies and stuff like that, obviously. And I want to know how to like rhythm and tempo and music theory and stuff like that. And so I picked up The Science of Music, and every single good science book starts off with a wizard analogy or metaphor. They always think that they're being so unique, but I'm so serious. Go to like the science section of Barnes and Noble or any bookstore, and every decent science book, especially if it pertains to physics, starts off with a discussion of wizards or stage magic. And they're always like, so physics is, you need awe, you need wonder, you need to question what's all out there. And it's kind of like you're a magician, you're a stage magician. But the thing is stage magicians, stage magic is fake. Physics is the real deal. And the thing is what these people, these scientists, even themselves don't realize, all of them don't realize, is that stage magicians are straight up physicists. That is the secret of stage magic. These people are accredited, practiced physicists, right? It's all physics and misdirection, which is psychology. And physics and psychology both share terminology, structure, understanding. That's why they can switch between them, right? Like card tricks, moving, levitating, all this stuff, like all the things that make near-death experiences seem like, BS. It's physics, right? And so all these scientists and mainly physicists start off with this analogy about like, oh, it's like, oh, but it's not stage magic. You guys are the same. And the fact that you can't distinguish, that is your life work right there. But the reason why you don't recognize it is because it's not in the context of work. That is your beloved. That is your muse. That is the reason why you get up in the morning. That is, that awe you feel, that shock, like during a magic performance. That is why you got into this field. The hardest people for magicians to fool are children. And it's not like... It's not because like children are idiots. It's because children don't know how things logically flow. So they ask questions. To understand how to manipulate or like people with physics and do stage magic, you have to know logic and, so intimately. You have to know how the world and the laws of the world work so intimately to change it or manipulate it. So they understand physics. And so every science book that starts with a fucking magician, and it's not saying that the book is bad. It's just that every single science book starts with some allusion to magicians, and I want to be like, okay, guys, you're a bit on the nose. These people are you. The reason why they don't publish magicians' secrets is because it's physics 101. But well, there's more to it. There's also wonder. But and the thing is it's just so interesting how like. So with the anti-intellectualism, you know, science is not devoid of passion. It's not cold. It's, you know, it's a whole thing. But yeah, a lot of people don't trust science. And I will get into another, because I'm at 53 minutes. I was like, should I get into anti-intellectualism now, anti-science and anti-vax? I am very pro-science. I'm also, the thing is I'm pro-emotions and I'm pro-logic, right? I'm pro-intuition and I'm pro, like, you know, rational, you know, thinking. It's so fun. And it's a very fine line. And the thing is when you live in like a binary world where everything is good or evil, black or white, man or woman, right? The gray, right? It's so hard to exist in the gray because I guess in terms of evolution, you know, anything, it's like the uncanny valley where like something looks semi-human and now it's like giving this uneasy like backroom sort of feel. And so you're like, is this a predator or is this a friend? You know, so that's why the gray, I guess in an evolutionary sense, is polarizing. But when it comes to, you know, solutions and art and just so many different communities, you're going to have to immerse yourself in the gray and be comfortable with it. Because the thing is, you know, if you exist in a binary, you miss out on so many cool numbers. Yeah, you can write complex code with zeros and ones. But damn, don't you want to get to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? You know? Binary can get complicated, but the gray is so fun. Yeah, and so I guess the next time I'm going to get into being anti-science and anti-vax and all this stuff, and we're going to go into the morals of it. I'm realizing when it comes to, actually, I will bring back the knowledge illusion because it talks about how to convert people, and it's easier to convert people with causal logic when it comes to objective-based outcomes, like, you know, you don't want your child to get autism. That's not a religious belief. It is ignorance, but it's not a religious belief. So thankfully, it can be more easily changed. So yeah, and then I guess we could explain, you know, the role of humor and branding, because a lot of, you know, these campaigns, I guess, educational campaigns are kind of lackluster. And this is actually where I do have formal expertise, so I will be advising on branding, as I used to work in advertising. I was a copywriter. I did a lot of, I was like the social person, not the social media person, like the copywriter for a bunch of different national brands. And I am in some advertising textbooks. And I guess I could bring those in and be like, these are my credentials, even though I didn't finish college. So we're going to take a branding approach to ignorance, and then we're going to take a second type of causal logic approach to the morals that can be changed as long as they're isolated and gives the person the opportunity to retain their identity. But yeah, those are the books I'm reading. I'm so disappointed in process of neurosciences. Jonah, do better. I know it's been like fucking 13 years and you're like, I get it. He's probably like had not heard the end of this, like because I mean, it was like a whole BuzzFeed article. And you know, if BuzzFeed wrote about it, it's serious, guys. But I think, I mean, I love the sciences. My love for learning is brand new. I obviously spent like it's over 10 years like doing comedy, whether it be internet or like professional. And so comedy is an art. A lot of people don't like accepting that comedy is an art because the purpose of art is to communicate a message, right? And provoke strong feelings, you know, comfort the disturbed, but disturb the comfortable. And I did just make a podcast episode on this, on why laughter is the best medicine, because when you laugh, it releases endorphins, and it's also social glue. And since we are social creatures and connection is what we want, endorphins, oxytocin, right? So, when you experience comedy and you're laughing, you're essentially on pain meds. So the strong feelings it evokes goes away. However, the message remains. That's why the alt-right pipeline starts with jokes, because it's like, you know, it's easier to accept hard, harsh, horrible, supposed truths about others when it doesn't hurt, right? It's like if you've ever been on Percocet, someone could have just told you that your mom got hit by a car and you're on Percocet and you're like, damn, Okay, so like that's why the alt-right pipeline starts with jokes, because it's the art form that numbs. The thing is comedians are famously disturbed. I know this as a comedian, right? Or anyone who uses comedy to cope, right? You're not numb. You're using comedy to connect with others because maybe you've been ostracized or pushed away. However, the audience, since they're all laughing in unison, right? They're numbing together, they're gluing together, so they're numbing and then increasing oxytocin, which makes them feel good. And so from an artist perspective, traditional artists like painting or, musicians, they want to make you cry. They want to make you feel. They want to make you pissed. They want to make you like really just get upset with the status quo. And so comedy is a unique art form in that emotionality has gone away, so everyone assumes that it's lowbrow. No, it's probably the most like effective art form to convert people. Like it is so it's kind of like, I guess, an artist's dream, where like an artist does want to provoke a strong emotional response, but they also want you to get what they're saying. And I guess comedians, we always get that. Oh, you get what we're saying because it doesn't hurt when we say it. That's why like comedians could go on SNL or, on Netflix and say the most horrible shit. And it's like, because that's their true convictions just kind of repurposed into an artistic format. It would be like, but yeah, so I started off as comedy, and the thing is I wasn't numb, but my audience, that's art, and now I've gotten into research, and so I'm not accredited in research. I am kind of accredited in like advertising and statistics, and statistics is the other thing that I can probably speak the most confidently on, because I only have 4 hours of credits left of that, and before I dropped out and had a mental breakdown. But I think I'm fusing art and science together, and I get really defensive about it when people fuck it up. So I'm both pro science and pro art and pro living in the moment and emerging and meeting you all with warmth, and your impression of me and my impression of you is incredibly important. So that is this week's episode, guys. That is why I'm upset with that book. It felt like it was a total misrepresentation of everything I've ever worked for. And I mean, like, and I know that he didn't write it on behalf of me, but I told you that it was going to be my favorite. And then so yeah. And next week we'll get into the nitty gritty and the morals of anti-intellectualism and anti-vax and all that stuff. And I do have some interesting proposed solutions. And oh my God, I don't want to spoil it, but thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you everyone who comments or chimes in or gives me feedback. I am not a teacher. I am not really stating anything new. If anything, I just kind of rephrase stuff so it can be better understood, because I deeply long to be understood. And a lot of people think that when I talk about emotions and study emotions that I'm avoiding feelings. But the thing is I'm also an alcoholic. And I spent so much of my life just numbing that. When I learn about emotions and I get the clarity of understanding, the mechanical aspects, which is not, the whole of it. Like I said, it can't be reduced to that. I feel joy. And people seem to keep writing off my joy as if it's not a real emotion. It kind of feels like when everyone sees a man mad and they're like, oh, he's just mad is also an emotion. Well, actually but anyway, I feel joy when I share stuff and when I learn with you guys, when you give me feedback and you say that you understand or you're understood how I feel. Even if you didn't catch all of this or you can't remember it, that's totally fine. The fact that you listened with me in this moment and had this shower thought with me means the most. And purpose of life is to make meaning. So I feel very fulfilled here. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe. Rate me 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and subscribe to me on YouTube. And that's where I answer questions. But I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.